The idea of Trumpism is the king is not bound by rules, and rules are unjust. And so when the king breaks the rules, he's actually creating justice. And this was what he was trying to do in the Balogun case. He's very good at creating suspense and plot lines, but this really didn't work out because the scenario he had in mind is the US wins thanks to Trump. As one Belgian newspaper said, there were 7.9 billion Belgians last night. After this intervention, everyone wanted them to win.
Hello and welcome to TrumpWorld. I'm Anushka Asthana. I'm in Washington, D.C. And this week I am without Matt Fry, but lots to talk about nonetheless. The president right now is on his way to Ankara for a NATO summit. There were warnings that he was going to blow it up, that he was going to turn up pretty angry, although I was with some quite senior diplomats last night who were saying the Americans were playing that down behind the scenes, saying they didn't actually want to have a row when it came to NATO. They were making positive noises about the idea of a breakthrough on Ukraine, although they were very, very pessimistic when it came to Iran. Donald Trump has suggested that he could finish the job on Iran. They didn't think there was appetite for that, but they also didn't see a positive way forward. That comes after another crazy week. We've had July the 4th, America's 250th anniversary. Donald Trump jokes that is the one thing he can't take credit for. Although, to be honest, if you listen to him, he pretty much tries to take credit for it. And he certainly made the whole event all about him. And the president is also making the World Cup all about him, or he tried to at least. We actually haven't seen him much at the World Cup. I wondered if it was because he got booed at a Knicks game when he turned up there earlier this year. But then suddenly in he comes. And this is all about the US star striker, Folarin Balogun. He has scored a number of goals for the US. The country has been cheering him on, but there was a pretty nasty tackle when the USA met Bosnia. In the moment, the referee actually didn't call a foul, but then a video replay was shown and he gave Balogun a red card. The Americans were shocked about it. There was lots of debate about it. And very much to their surprise, he also had long-standing rule in football, a ban in the next match, which was actually last night against Belgium. Well, Donald Trump didn't like that at all, and he likes to get involved in these things. He's very close to the FIFA boss, Gianni Infantino, so he called him up and he asked FIFA to review it. FIFA did review it, and they overturned the ban, which was very, very rare in terms of decisions, although Infantino insisted it was nothing to do with Donald Trump. What was interesting was Trump doesn't seem to know the rules of football. This idea of banning someone for a match seemed completely wild to him. And speaking in the White House yesterday, he said, especially when it's your best player, you can't take them off the pitch.
How would you feel if I took, we take Messi out? Look, he ran into somebody. Or we took Ronaldo, you bunked into somebody, we're going to take you out of a game. He's great.
Donald Trump showing that he doesn't know the rules of football that well. Interestingly, he mentioned that he'd watched the Mexico-England match, which was very exciting, he said. He said he didn't know who any of the players were, apart from when he suddenly dropped this about Harry Kane.
What a game that was with Mexico and England. I mean, two countries, I don't know the players, although I think Kane is a great player. See, I played golf with him and I like him a lot. He's a good golfer too.
Has Donald Trump actually played golf with Harry Kane? There is no public record of it. And I was with a number of British journalists last night and people were wondering if he'd got the right player. Although Harry Kane, I'm told, does come to the US and does play golf. So maybe it did happen. I'm sure we'll find out at some point. To discuss all of this, I'm joined today by Simon Kuper, a Financial Times journalist. He is the author of the book World Cup Fever, and he is in the US right now covering his 10th World Cup. Simon has for years talked about the way in which football and politics have got entwined. Can I just start by asking you, the USA crashed out to Belgium last night. I actually thought 4-1 was not a particularly fair representation of the match. The US did slightly better than that. But at the end, they were calling it the Donald Trump curse. The Belgian players were badly trying to do a Donald Trump dance. He didn't help his national team, did he?
No, it's very funny that it backfired so horribly. And Balogun, the guy who was reinstated thanks to Trump's intervention, didn't have any impact on the game. So, yeah, it was beautiful the way it turned out. I think, as one Belgian newspaper said, there were 7.9 billion Belgians last night. After this intervention, everyone wanted them to win.
I actually felt a bit sorry for Balogun himself because it wasn't his fault, was it?
No, and I think he went up to the Belgian coach afterwards and said something like that. He said some kind words and the Belgian coach was touched. So he handled it very well. But the US Federation should have said, look, rules are rules. The guy got a red card. He's not playing. So they are also part of this shame.
We'll go on to a bit more of the politics of it. But just on the question of red cards or not red cards, there is no way to challenge a red card, is there, during an actual World Cup tournament?
Yeah, I believe there's no appeals procedure during the tournament. And this was actually validated by the video assistant referee. So it's not that it was an obvious error. You can always argue about red cards because the thing about football is that most decisions are a kind of balance of probabilities. It's very hard to draw hard and fast rules, and which is why these arguments go on forever and ever.
What I found amazing was that Donald Trump, in describing it, clearly knew nothing about the rules of football. Because he was like, suspending someone from a match? That's never fair. You wouldn't do that to Messi. You wouldn't do that to Ronaldo. And I was thinking, no, actually, you would. Although we'll come back to Ronaldo because FIFA also made an exception for him. And I want to ask you exactly why that might have been. But just before we get to that, did it surprise you that Donald Trump intervened in this way? Or do you think it tells us something both about him as a president and FIFA as an organisation?
I was actually surprised that Trump had ignored the World Cup until now. So the first 4 weeks or so, we didn't hear him at all. And I'd imagined a World Cup very much dominated by him because he loves the idea of the world's biggest TV show. That's how he sees the World Cup. And he talks about many games are bigger than the Super Bowl. So an individual game like, say, Brazil-Japan, it's true, we'll have a larger worldwide viewing audience than the Super Bowl. He was very excited to be the star, the main character of that. But I think partly because he doesn't get out much anymore. He went to the New York Knicks basketball game just before the World Cup, was very loudly booed, and I think that deterred him from going to World Cup games.
Although he claimed the next day that he'd been cheered. You didn't hear it right, Simon.
I'm sorry, my mistake. And then he was busy, there was a war in Iran. He had his 80th birthday celebrations. His 80th birthday celebrations then segued into America's 250th birthday celebrations, which essentially Trump's birthday celebrations. And so now that all that is behind him, or at least they pretend the war in Iran is over now, then he suddenly has time for the World Cup. The US was playing this very big game, and I think he had this fantasy of the US team winning the World Cup presented by him, and in fact, won partly by him. That was part of the Balogun intervention. It was the king. The idea of Trumpism is the king is not bound by rules, and rules are unjust. And so when the king breaks the rules, he's actually creating justice. And this was what he was trying to do in the Balogun case. And then the king can bestow grace and pardons and blessing. And the king was going to make the US world champion, but unfortunately it didn't pan out.
I wonder what he's saying now. I wonder if he actually watched the match. And obviously he was kind of boasting about it. He was not at all embarrassed that he'd picked up the phone to his friend Gianni. I assume Gianni Infantino was feeling sheepish about it. Obviously came out and denied that Donald Trump had had any influence. But it did leave me thinking, and then maybe now we're doing exactly what the president wants us to do, which is giving him loads of attention because of this issue. But do you think that type of intervention was almost what Donald Trump was reveling in? Like he almost won't care whether it went right or wrong because, as you say, he wants a TV show and this gives us a plot line.
Yeah, he's very good at creating suspense and plot lines, but this really didn't work out because the scenario he had in mind is the US wins thanks to Trump. And now also that plot line is over. The plot line of the US team advancing in the World Cup has been killed off prematurely. It's like you're building a series around this actor and then the actor leaves the show. It's very unfortunate.
Now, I want to ask you about the kind of financial incentives that might have been there for all of this. But first, historically speaking, obviously, it wasn't completely unprecedented, but it's not that normal for FIFA to overturn a decision like this. In fact, I think the last one, which was very similar, was in 1962. But tell me how politicians in the past have tried to influence World Cups.
I mean, it has happened quite a bit, usually by politicians in autocracies. So Benito Mussolini hosted essentially the 1934 World Cup in Italy, and he would go and visit referees in the changing room beforehand. There were many decisions in favor of Italy, so much so that a couple of referees were later banned for life who'd been in that tournament. Then in 1978, before Argentina-Peru, the leader of Argentina's military dictatorship, this is in Argentina, General Videla, goes and visits the Peruvians in their dressing room. Argentina will only progress if they win by 4 goals. And Videla, I think with Kissinger by his side, Henry Kissinger, visits the Peruvians in the changing room, says some words to them, and hey presto, Argentina wins 6-0, progress, and end up winning the World Cup. So this stuff does happen.
Kissinger by his side?
Yes, in one version I've heard Kissinger is there. I cannot put my hand on heart and say I have 100% historical evidence, but I believe this to be the case, yes. And so politicians of that ilk, sort of nationalist autocrats, have always tried to intervene in World Cups. And in 1962, as you alluded to, the Brazilian government gets their star player Garrincha reinstated for the World Cup final when he's been sent off in the semi. And Garrincha plays, Brazil win.
I have to say, when I was watching the USA-Belgium last night, all I kept thinking was, this looks like karma. This looks like karma. But then at one point, Balogun came off the pitch and then Belgium scored again. So I wasn't totally sure if it was the karma that I expected. But basically, politics and FIFA and the World Cup have always been entwined. But have we ever seen a relationship like Donald Trump and Gianni Infantino? I mean, he was there at Melania's documentary opening. He was there at the Board of Peace launch. And, you know, he actually turned up with a red MAGA cap that said USA with 45-47 on the side. I mean, it feels pretty shameless.
It's very shameless. And I think Infantino admires Trump and would like to be the kind of Trump of FIFA. That is to say, a guy who runs the organization alone, which he increasingly does. So FIFA used to be a kind of organization with a king and barons, and the king, Sepp Blatter, the president, had to pay a lot of attention to the barons and money had to be spread to the barons. The barons were eliminated by this corruption scandal in 2015. Some of them were jailed, some of them died of old age. And Infantino took over FIFA and made it his own thing. It's sort of run from wherever he is. If you want to know FIFA's policy, look at his Instagram page. So it's quite a Trumpian setup now. It's what Trump would like the US to be, but the US has more safeguards than FIFA does. So, and I think Infantino just has this personal thrill of being close to this very powerful man. I don't think you need to see him as Infantino pursuing the ends of FIFA, trying to enhance the position of FIFA. It really, I think, is a personal ego trip that he loves being close to Trump. And he's found that the way to Trump's heart, as everybody knows, is to flatter him. And so the FIFA Peace Prize was the climax of that. So
just before he started a war.
Yeah, just before he started a couple of wars, yeah. So the timing of it was disastrous. And it's made FIFA look even worse than they did already. But Infantino doesn't really care. And he doesn't listen to anyone else inside FIFA. Often his colleagues, the people who work for him, have no idea where he is or what the policy is.
Now, let's just talk about the money, because this has sort of been quite eye-opening to a lot of people. I mean, we all know that the World Cup makes a lot of money. It used to be the case that they would want to fill the stadium with more reasonably priced tickets, partly because that looks great, it feels great, and that also the money mainly comes from the world audience. I mean, one figure that always blows my mind is that over 5 billion people will engage with this World Cup in one way or another, which is obviously more than half the world's population. So it's wild, but it feels wilder than usual this year. We've seen absolutely sky-high ticket prices. I mean, you know, remortgage and you might just get along to a match. And then on top of that, I mean, the hydration breaks. Are the hydration breaks about anything other than money?
No, they're just about money. I mean, FIFA makes about 9 billion from this tournament, and it's about the only money it makes over its 4-year cycle. The Men's World Cup is its one high-value commercial property. And so it gets that money largely from TV and sponsors. And what does TV want? American TV wants advertising breaks. You don't have those organically in soccer, so you build in a couple of extra. And so essentially we've moved to a 4-quarter match. It's like an American football match.
I heard a kid the other day say to me, oh, it happened in the 4th quarter. I was like, sacrilege.
I've used that phrase myself, and it does actually work that way because in the water breaks, the coach will give a team talk and will revise the tactics. So it's like a timeout in basketball, and the game then changes after the water break. So it's actually become quite a significant tactical moment. One reason I find it distressing, apart from it breaks your concentration, it breaks the momentum, is that it turns football more into a coach's game. Because the great thing about soccer, in my mind, is that players are making decisions on the field all the time. They're autonomous. And the coach is shouting stuff on the sidelines. Nobody can hear him. Nobody cares. And it's the players who decide we need to push further forward or this guy needs to be 10 meters further back. And with water breaks, it becomes a coach run game.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you on the water breaks. I mean, a part of me is like, is it actually quite a nice thing to have, particularly given how hot it is here? But it's all about the money. And that's what makes you think, is everything all about the money? Because the commercial reality, and I was speaking to another football author, Jules Boykoff, about this yesterday, the reality of the US continuing in the tournament is it would have brought more advertising money to the tournament. And then the other precedent that people were pointing to in terms of them overturning red card suspensions was Cristiano Ronaldo, who got a red card in the qualifying stages, had a 3-match ban. One match he went ahead and had the ban, which was still during the qualifiers. And then FIFA used this obscure Article 27 that none of us knew really much about until yesterday to say he didn't have to serve the next 2 match bans, which were during the World Cup. And I'm assuming Cristiano Ronaldo brings quite a lot of money to the World Cup, and that was also a financial decision. What do you make of that?
I mean, Cristiano Ronaldo is the most followed human on social media, although a lot of the followers are bots, but some are real people. And so, yeah, he's a valuable commercial property. Look, FIFA, this time, really for the first time, have gone all out to maximize income. Because at past World Cups, for almost any game, I think people were getting in for well under $100. So they never really sought to maximize in this way. And the tradition of World Cups is that fans don't like commercial exploitation. Nobody believes that the whole point of the World Cup is to make money. And that credo was actually largely observed by FIFA. So this is the first time we've seen this full-on money grab.
And how has it affected it for you? Do you think it changes the sort of quality of it?
It's ugly. Look, I mean, 99.99% of people are watching this on TV. So really the World Cup is a television event where the stadiums are kind of the backdrop, the decor. And it's great. You're in your living room, you're with your family, you're with your friends, you're in a bar. It's a communal event. It's beautiful. And those people are not affected by the ticket prices. But I was at England-Mexico on the weekend. And by the end...
Wild.
Yeah, it was a wild match. I would say not a great match, but a wild, dramatic match. And by the end, the cheapest tickets were going for $3,700 for the cheapest tickets, $3,700. Most expensive for about 10 times that, according to my newspaper, the Financial Times. And so, yeah, I mean, almost everybody is priced out. It becomes a World Cup for the very rich in the stadiums. As I say, the World Cup is mostly not about people in the stadiums. They're a tiny, tiny proportion of the people there. And you still got, at a game like Brazil-Haiti, where I was, you got loads of Brazilian Americans, Haitian Americans, probably not high income, who had made sure that they had those couple of $1,000s to attend the match of their lives.
Yeah, I mean, there are people. I was outside the Atlanta Stadium when England played the Democratic Republic of Congo. I did have a look at whether I could go in, and the minimum ticket was $7.70, and I thought I better do my job, which is to stand outside and talk to fans. But you do think, I've got 3 boys. Everyone's excited about the soccer, football. I can't believe I just said that. Everyone's watching it, in community groups here where I live. And, I get you that it is largely about what you're watching on TV, but it does seem quite sad to me that basically the vast majority of people couldn't possibly hope to take their kids along to even one match in this World Cup. Although I did meet one England supporter outside the Atlanta game who was part of the kind of travelling team, like as in a part of the kind of travelling supporters group. And they were able to get tickets for still a large amount, but more like $220. And they had travelled Like they'd taken this one, this route where they'd gone by bus to the first stop, then they'd flown to Ireland, then they'd flown to Canada, and they'd managed to do it all in under $2,000, which I was quite impressed by. But as you say, largely it's way, way more expensive than that. Now, the other thing I've heard you talk about and write about, which I'm completely fascinated about, is the kind of another political impact of the World Cup is that we're watching all these teams, and so many of them are racially diverse. So many of them have immigrants who have travelled around the world. You look at the English team, you look at the French team, you look at the Belgian team last night, etc. What impact does that have back in those countries in terms of the political debate around the matches?
World Cups don't change the world. So it's not that, if a multiracial team wins the World Cup, that people in that country say, oh, we love immigrants and the whole immigrant debate is over. I mean, that's what the French thought in 1998 when their multicolored team won the World Cup. And, even President Chirac was saying this is a vision of a new France, a multicolored France that wins. And then the far right just keeps rising. So you can't see World Cups as changing politics. What they do is they help people discuss what is our country. And so when you see that England team, multicolored England team, it's a vision of what England is. And actually, almost everyone in England is okay with that. And then there is a minority who think that's not okay. It should be a white country. And so that debate in England is largely over. In France, where I live, not so much. And in surveys, even when France had won the World Cup in 98, afterwards, more than a third of the population are saying there are too many people from immigrant backgrounds in this team. And so even when France is the best team in the world, many people in France are not happy with that because they don't believe in that vision of France, of a mixed country. And then you have the opposite, teams like Cape Verde or Morocco, which are very largely drawn from their diasporas. So almost all the Moroccan players are of Moroccan origin, but born and raised in Western Europe, learn their football there in France or Belgium or Spain or Holland. And what the diaspora team, and the first was Ireland in 1990 with all these Irish guys who'd been born and raised in Britain. What a diaspora team says is our nation also includes the people who left and their descendants. Wherever they live in the world, you are still a Moroccan, you are still a Cape Verdean, you are still Irish. And that's, to me, a very beautiful vision of a nation, that the diaspora can be part of it forever. And as somebody who is of multi-backgrounds myself, I know that people can have multiple identities. So you can be Cape Verdean and Dutch, as many people are. And also maybe you're Cape Verdean, you're Dutch, you're a woman, you're a football fan, you're a pharmacist. To, speak with Amartya Sen, all these identities can coexist in one person. It's when you say you can only have one identity, either you're English or you're Nigerian, that gets threatening, that starts to exclude people and saying, well, you're not really English.
It's sad though, isn't it, that it doesn't have that positive effect that people dreamt of in 1998. In fact, we've seen on the England side players, and I know you've said this is by a minority, but nevertheless, players, when they've missed a penalty, facing racism. I've heard people say that as a black player, you need to do everything right. You make one mistake and things go wrong. I mean, the irony of Donald Trump here, Folarin Balogun is a birthright citizen. His mum was a Nigerian Londoner, was 7.5 months pregnant, I think, here in the US, and an airline said you can't board the flight. So he was born in Brooklyn. Listen to him. He's obviously brought up as a Londoner. Donald Trump wants to ban birthright citizenship, and yet there he is intervening with FIFA on this issue. And obviously Kylian Mbappe has had his own say in France and has talked about the far right. What impact has that had?
Yeah, so Mbappe and several other players have spoken out quite bravely against the Rassemblement National, the far right, which is the biggest party in France and might well win the presidential elections next year. So you have the national football team in conflict with the biggest party in the country. Most players, I would say, in that team, almost all. And what does that do? Well, the far right's actually quite happy to have Mbappe and players like him as an enemy, because they think, well, you're not white, so that's a strike against you. You live abroad, so Mbappe plays for Real Madrid, so you've left France, and that's an act of disloyalty. And you're a multimillionaire, which in France is suspect. You're not a member of the people, you're an elitist. And so the far right is quite happy to be in conflict with the national football team. It thinks it can actually benefit from that conflict.
But are they still cheering the national football team?
Some people aren't. So some people in France, they won't usually say it out loud, but they're sulky about this non-white team. The far right in the past has congratulated white players more and the white coach Didier Deschamps when France has won something.
What, like completely explicitly done that?
Well, it's not saying because you are white, but it says, congratulations, Olivier Giroud, on your magnificent goal and you brought France to the next round. Or congratulations, Didier Deschamps, on leading France to the World Cup. Not congratulations, Kylian Mbappe. And so it's all unspoken. And so they say, oh, well, how can you say we're a racist? We don't say anything racist. No, you have to read between the lines because we live in an era where almost nobody is stupid enough to say outright racist things, very straightforward racist things.
How good would the France team if it didn't have its ethnically diverse players?
Well, and the same thing has been said about England. If you didn't have immigration, then that wouldn't be an England team. You're not one thing or the other. You're not Irish or British or Jamaican.
Just choose the team where you've got best chance.
or the team you feel most attached to. So I think the Moroccan players chose Morocco partly because they feel excluded in the European countries they grew up in, many of them. And so they feel, well, Morocco welcomes me, Morocco wants me. For some players, that is a reason to choose. You choose the country that you feel chooses you.
Yeah, and I suppose Balogun might think that he wouldn't have been selected for the England team. I don't think he would have been selected for the England team, although France do have a very good English player, don't they?
Yeah, well, one of the bizarre things about this tournament is the most beautiful new player to have emerged. I mean, he was known as a great player at Bayern Munich. Only, I would say, the last 18 months or so has he emerged to greatness. But he's shot onto the world stage as a new great, Michael Olise, who's a West Londoner, who was raised in Hayes near Heathrow Airport, learned his football in Britain entirely, 7 years in the Chelsea Academy as a kid. And he's now France's playmaker because his mum is French-Algerian and his dad played cricket for Nigeria.
Let me just finally ask you about England. You've written about what it is that stops England from having glory, 60 years of glory or 60 years of no glory. And I've heard you say that our expectations are perhaps too high. Why should England have higher expectations? But it doesn't necessarily go on population size. Belgium have got a very good team. They're a pretty tiny country, haven't they? You'd think there'd have been one win in 60 years.
Well, I mean, a lot of it is luck. I mean, England have lost a few World Cups on penalty shootouts. That's in part luck. I mean, in part it's preparation. If a ball bounces in off the post rather than off the post. So to some degree, World Cups are determined by luck, and England hasn't been particularly lucky. But there are many countries like England, countries that have a long football experience, which is the best predictor. How many international matches has your country played? But there's a lot that have about as much experience as England, that are in Western Europe, which is the region that has developed the most functional football styles. And so you're competing against, France, Germany, Spain, Italy in the past, always, Messi. And so to win one is actually pretty difficult. I mean, they might do it this time. It's unlikely still. But, I mean, England start the World Cup with about a 10% chance. That's not bad.
Do you think they'll beat Norway?
Only fools predict the results of football matches.
Okay, fair enough. And do you think, let me ask you very finally, do you think we'll see much more of Donald Trump when it comes to the World Cup?
I think so. I think he's discovered the tournament a bit late and he now has some time. And I think the last week he's going to get involved.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
That was Financial Times journalist Simon Kuper. He is currently in Atlanta, but preparing to go to Miami for England's clash with Norway, which, of course, everyone is very nervous about. But who knows? Maybe this is the year. Don't we say that every time? That is it for TrumpWorld this week. From me, Anushka Asthana in Washington, D.C. I hope you are enjoying watching or listening to us. And if you are, please do subscribe on any of the platforms that you are using. I will be back next week, again without Matt. And actually, I will be in the UK. So see you then.